Hi folks, welcome to your MWIS Friday Planner in association with Ellis Brigham. It's a cold story once again, the cold air extensive back across Britain through this weekend. We have a risk of snow as well. That focused really on Wales through Saturday, maybe nudging into the Peak District as well. Bit of snow perhaps in northern Scotland, but mainly a dry story elsewhere. Still an ongoing mix of snow and some rain at times next week as the air masses do battle across Britain. Milder air trying to get in, but colder air always trying to win out. And in the longer range, it does look as though the colder weather patterns will continue. We'll dive straight in with a look at Saturday's synoptic chart, and low pressure is centred towards the southwest of us. Higher pressure is away toward the north and northwest. We have a very strong easterly wind. That will be likely gale, even severe gale force across the mountains of northern England and across Wales as well. 40-50 mile per hour, very gusty in places. A very cold day. The air temperature on the highest tops at sort of -3 or 4, but add on that wind chill and it's more like -20. So really bear in mind if you're even thinking locally about heading on to any of those high tops. Greatest risk of snow then is focused around that front across Wales, where that's engaging with the cold air mass that lies to the north, and that's where the greatest risk of snow is. Away from that, a fine day in terms of being dry with some sunshine, lightest of the winds across northern and western Scotland. I'll take you through this chart that is the freezing level. This starting from early on Saturday, really just to show what's happening around that zone of precipitation across Wales and the Midlands. We've got very cold air in place. The scale is at the bottom of the chart. You've got a freezing level here at around 200-300 metres. Much terrain then is frozen across northern Britain. Now just notice that across Wales we're into the bluer colours, which indicate at this stage at first light that the freezing level is up to 800 metres or so, maybe even higher than that across the far southwest of Wales, just as briefly milder air is around. But just watch what happens as we run onwards into the middle of Saturday daytime and particularly onwards into the afternoon. The very lowest of the freezing level shown on this chart across the south of Britain really is in association with that zone of constant precipitation, simply because there is that ongoing rain and snow falling through the atmosphere. It chills the air and brings that 0 Celsius level down to very low levels, which brings the greater risk of snow falling to practically sea level across central England and Wales. Notice that you go towards southwest England and Wales and the temperature is much different, very much in the milder air to the south of that front. So huge contrasts in temperatures could well be going on over a fairly small distance on the ground. The scope then for lying snowfall across the Midlands and Wales to relatively low elevations. This is the general precipitation sequence then. Still a degree of uncertainty how far north the heaviest of this gets across Wales and into the Peak District. This is first thing Saturday, and again we're just looking at the shaded colours, the whiter background, which is where the model is picking up on the snowfall. That's across Wales. The heaviest precipitation sort of across mid and south Wales in the morning. It's trying its best to nudge into the Peak District. It looks a bit less likely that anything significant really gets into the Peak District through Saturday, but I'd be suspecting a little bit of snow around, maybe something sleety at low levels for a time. The greater risk of more substantial snow perhaps over the higher ground in the Midlands rather than into more Pennine areas. Taking onwards into the afternoon and the evening, and that risk of snow even extending across central southern England over even moderately high ground, and then that whole frontal system just decays away and slides away southwards into Saturday night, allowing skies to clear, widespread frost and ice then forming. Before we go on with the synoptic charts, just to continue the story with the freezing level, this is by the time we get to first thing Sunday, and again we've got the 0 Celsius level down to very low levels in the atmosphere. Where the model here is showing a shaded background, it's essentially the model's understanding of the topography. It's suggesting frozen terrain, is as simple as that is trying to show. It's got a coarse resolution in terms of what it understands of the hills, but it's got that idea of the freezing level interacting with the ground. That's what the white shading is there. Take that story on then. Sunday is a cold day. We've got sub-zero temperatures from around 300-400 metres upwards, maybe slightly lifting a bit during the daytime in places, but it's sub-zero across the mountains on the whole. It'll stay that way into Monday morning. Again, a widespread hard frost and ice into valleys and glens through Monday. Not a huge deal of difference in terms of freezing level through Monday daytime, up to around 400 or 500 metres, maybe at best, some places lower than that. There's the scope maybe for some more snowfall to develop in places if a front just tries to come back in from the southwest again. We'll come to those charts in a moment. Just to run the story into the middle of the week, this is through into Tuesday, and just notice how there's that battleground starting to take place again, and this is going to be the difficulty for detail by Tuesday, Wednesday, as milder air again tries to come back up from the southwest. The cold air stays very much in place across much of northern Britain, across Northern Ireland as well, as it shows on this chart, and that battleground, the boundary in the middle of that, is where the scope for some snowfall is. Now, whether that's focused around the Pennines or a bit more into Scotland will remain to be seen around Tuesday, Wednesday. Most likely for Wales, it goes back to a period of thaw, and temperatures will rise again in the middle of the week for a time across the higher mountains, above zero, even up to, say, Snowdon Summit. It could create very icy conditions in the long run, because that brief period of thaw could easily refreeze again. This is how all that looks then once you put the synoptic charts on it and the fronts on the map. And for Sunday, we're under a fairly slack pressure pattern. We've got mostly light winds across Scotland and northern England, but just watching a strengthening southeasterly, particularly across Wales. That may well be a strengthening wind across northern England with time as well. Really a dry day overall, maybe a few snow showers and flurries just getting into the northern parts of the Highlands. And later, particularly a risk of some rain and hill snow edging into the southwest of Wales. Terrain frozen, as we mentioned then, some sunshine around pretty widely, I would have thought, a few banks of cloud clinging to one or two of the higher tops. Pretty slack pressure pattern to start the new week then. The dregs of a front just away toward the southwest. That feature coming in around Sunday night doesn't really look like doing too much, apart from maybe just leaving a few bits of rain and hill snow around for Wales. One or two snow flurries possible for north and eastern Scotland. Most places dry, bright and frosty as we go into Monday daytime. Light winds overall, and a bit of a cull between weather systems really, as low pressure centres are aside from us. We're not quite under genuinely high pressure. A few freezing fog patches may be around in places. Things are on the move again by the time we're into Tuesday. This is where the next front is coming in, all very similar to what we've just seen in the past week or so, and the question about how far north this gets. That's the scope for some further snowfall, significant snowfall across some of the hills, northern England into the southern Highlands, maybe the least of that towards the west and northwest Highlands. The risk of the wind strengthening as well, as an east or southeasterly ahead of the front, turning southwesterly behind that as the milder air and some rain and drizzle gets into Wales. So this is pretty much where we get to by the middle of the week. Low pressure is still around across Britain, still areas of precipitation, of snow and some rain for some at this stage. Most of northern Europe overall is within a very cold air mass by this stage, and notice you trace the isobars across the map. We're looking for the source region of the air, and it goes well off the map out to the east into northern Russia, and that has the potential increasing likelihood on some of the modelling at a week away that some very cold air is trying to be drawn in our direction as we go onwards into early February. If we take that story on, that easterly flow is expected to be right across Scandinavia, trying to drag itself across the North Sea towards us as well. And that scope for significantly cold conditions for all as we go toward the back end of next week. Low pressure is sort of disappearing away a little bit more towards Spain and Portugal. Higher pressure over the Atlantic is just starting to build a little bit further northwards, really just creating a block in the weather pattern, stopping anything really coming in from the Atlantic. The colours on the chart show sort of less cold tones just appearing just to our west, but this is really showing temperature through a depth of the atmosphere overall. So what will tend to happen is temperatures rise a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, all things relative, whilst very cold air stays trapped down nearer the surface layers. So although the colours sort of abate a little bit, significantly cold conditions across Britain at low levels, across the hills, still in place, basically, I think is what you're just taking out of this chart at this time. Hard frost then developing, where high pressure begins to develop, clear skies overnight, some very low overnight minima may well be developing. Some snow showers may be coming in on an east or northeasterly wind off the North Sea. We shall keep you right up to date, as always, here at MWIS. Stay safe and enjoy your local walks if you can. That's been your Friday Planner in association with Ellis Brigham. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.